Hello and welcome to episode 6 of How Uncivilized, a podcast where two mellow fellows explore the unknown regions of Star Wars lore. This episode continues on from episode 5, where we were discussing Hermit Boy Luke Skywalker. Sit back and enjoy more tasty tidbits about the social distancing king. So, part 4, you did this one, Spencer.
I did.
Do you want to remind us what part 4 was?
Well, it was about Luke and Rey, so their connection, their relationship. I mean, there were only 2 questions, so I didn't delve too deep into their relationship.
Okay.
But I suppose...
I'm sure we'll delve into it more when we do a Rey episode.
I'm sure we will. But the questions were, do you think Luke is mad that Rey showed up? And question 10 was, there's no doubt Luke's going to train Rey, right? So the first one, it's more of a sort of, you've got to understand where Luke's head's at in this point. As you say, he's cut himself off from the Force. Yeah. He's trying to separate himself from everything, the galaxy, all the worries, the fears, the excitement. He's becoming almost like a monk, but to an intense degree. Yeah. So to the point where, obviously when Rey turns up, Luke sees the lightsaber and just goes, well, whatever. Thinks nothing of it and lobs it off the cliff.
Yeah.
Which is a good scene.
I enjoyed that bit. Like, I know a lot of people had qualms with it, but I thought it was very
it's
funny.
mainly because it shat in the face of the original trilogy, as did all of Episode 8. Really.
Now then.
Past must die. But no, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think there are elements to Episode 8 which really helped the story and really opened up new aspects for us to look at, which were really cool. Yeah. But basically, my understanding of all of this is Luke doesn't seem mad. He doesn't seem happy. Really, he doesn't seem to show anything or care either way. He's sort of completely disengaged. He's essentially just indifferent to Rey. He doesn't feel that there's nothing there, essentially.
He's kind of resigned himself to the fact that he's just given up. I think that's
it. It is, It's just, could say it's almost eternal nothingness, where he just thinks, material goods, almost whatever, lightsaber that had all that emotional value through the Force means nothing to me anymore. He's pretty resigned to the place he's at, is what they were trying to get at, and I think that is the case. I wouldn't say he was mad, but definitely just, indifferent is the word. Yeah. So that kind of answers that one pretty easily. Yeah. But then the next one... It
was certainly an inconvenience for him, but ultimately he didn't really care.
Frankly, he doesn't want people to be turning up either way, really. So for Rey to turn up is kind of like but meh. Yeah. I'll go into why it's meh for him now. Basically, Luke gives Rey lessons, yes, but he doesn't train her in the traditional sense. Yeah. He's sort of trying to show her why the Jedi needed to end. Yeah. And in so doing, implying why he wouldn't train her, essentially. He takes her on, he says, I'm going to show you 3 lessons, of which we only see 2 of them in the films. Yeah. I won't go into the 3rd lesson, because frankly, it's just not important.
Hence why they cut it from the film.
Well, yeah, it didn't really help anything. The first lesson was supposed to show Rey what the Force actually was. So she already knew how to access the Force. She already knew how to sort of feel it, as it were. But she didn't really know its dangers. She was quite a novice to it, almost in the same way of like a child handling a knife could easily cut themselves on. I mean, it's quite one of those things. He definitely needed to show her, in his sense anyway, the part of the Force where there's no control. He wanted to imply that can happen. You can tap into it and then crazy things can happen. So I think that was the meaning of the first lesson. The second lesson was about how the Force is dangerous and how basically hubris destroyed the Jedi and created the Empire, basically. Essentially inferring that she shouldn't rely on it as much, showing her that the Force isn't needed to solve all your problems. It's not a be-all and end-all thing, sort of implying that it's not needed. Yeah. Essentially, he was sort of backed into a corner and decided to disguise the lessons, or teaching her as these lessons of the Force shouldn't actually be used. Because obviously the last time he got into a bit of a fight with a student, it ended really badly, with Kylo Ren. So he didn't want to do that again. Didn't want to force her away. because he didn't want to see her like go like just a massive explosion of the Force, which was fair enough. So thought of ways around showing her through the Force how uncontrollable and crazy the Force really is and not to rely on it, essentially. Back to the question, does Luke train Rey? No, he doesn't train Rey at all.
No.
He actually shows Rey nothing in the way of technique, nothing in the way of self-control. He doesn't even bother, really. The one moment where he does try, where he's like, just control it, and she can't control it. He's like, oh, I told you to control it, and then just walks away.
Yeah.
So really, he doesn't train her at all.
No, but it's okay because she nicked all those books and can do it on her own.
Well, exactly. You'd hope that she'd use those books well and whatever. And we also do see that Leia has Jedi training. Yeah, so suddenly
she can have a little bit of input.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that basically ties up those two questions nicely in terms of, why Luke didn't want to train her.
Yeah.
Because it did almost seem like in the films like she was being trained, but she wasn't. You look at the point when she was doing all the sort of flailing about with the lightsaber, trying to practice techniques that would be used with her staff rather than the lightsaber. And you can see that actually the way she approaches the lightsaber is, I'd argue, it's quite cumbersome. She's not using it in the right way. She's flailing about and pointing it, and it's like, no. You can see she's untrained, but is trained to the use of some kind of staff, which isn't the same as a sword. So poor Rey didn't really. Again,
Rey.
All these like Force users that are deemed sort of the chosen one and the saviors don't really get that much training, or they don't get good training, or they're let down by their masters. Anakin, whereas technically he was incredibly impressive as a Jedi and could use the Force to a huge degree. Yeah, he wasn't backed up by his masters.
No, he wasn't.
After the fact, whereas with Luke and Rey, they weren't backed up by their masters before the fact. So it creates all these. It's a continuous theme of students being let down by their masters, I think.
Yeah.
But we can move on now. I think that's the last of Charlie's questions from 2015.
And I will say, I was quite pleased looking through these questions of how many of them, like I said before, are actually answered just through watching the actual series. Like, compared with previous questions we've done, we've had to explore quite a variety of different sources to get the information. But it was refreshing to see that with these questions, we did get those answers in episode 8 and in episode 9.
Well, definitely. And I suppose a lot of these questions were quite plot relevant. Heavy. You really did actually need to know them to understand the drive of the story. So
absolutely, yeah.
I suppose the only question which wasn't really answered, though it kind of half was the map one. But it's not really necessary.
It's
for the
not
story.
Essential. It's purely the thing of, this is something we find out about. Let's find out a little bit more about how it came to be. So it's not necessary.
Because who gives a shit about what happened 30 years ago, right, Charlie?
Absolutely, yeah. We now have some of your questions, which drag us to post-episode 9, what we still want to know. There were 3 questions here, but I believe I had the first one, which was...
You certainly did.
What happened to Luke's green lightsaber? So not the blue lightsaber, we'll get into that in a later episode. The green one. We last see it, technically, in The Last Jedi in the flashback, which shows Luke confronting Ben. He ignites his green lightsaber. We're all like, yeah, it's the green lightsaber, and then we never see it ever again. So all the stuff happens with the temple. I want to kind of change it up a bit before I say what actually happened to it, I want to explore, because there were a few different theories which were like, oh, what happened to the lightsaber? Where could it be? Kind of
like good theories, I do.
I think they're reasonably interesting theories compared with the actual what happened to it, put it that way.
Well, let's chow down on some theories, mate. I'm always up for that.
So, pre-episode 8, some people thought the actual lightsaber would be stored in R2-D2. When we saw
like in Return of the Jedi, where he sort of just suddenly has a lightsaber hole.
Yeah. So some people were like, maybe it's stored in R2-D2. Maybe, there's the shot of Luke putting his hand on R2-D2 in episode 7.
Yeah.
That was almost a thing of saying, the lightsaber's in there. There's the lightsaber. Give him a pat.
Yeah, it's all safe and sound.
Yeah. There was another theory, which came about after episode 8, since we didn't see it again, that perhaps Kylo had the lightsaber, and not only did he have it, he used it to create his crossguard lightsaber. So he broke apart the green kyber crystal and like poured his hate into it, thus turning it red and like distorting it. So that explains why the crystal was cracked and why it was suddenly red.
That would have been cool.
It would have been
really
cool. But as we know in episode 4, this isn't actually the case. This is because Kylo gets his unstable kyber crystal from elsewhere.
Yes.
And then the third theory I found, which was quite interesting, was to episode 9, they thought the lightsaber would hold some kind of key in terms of Kylo Ren's eventual redemption. Like what happened with Luke's blue lightsaber with Rey, the same thing would happen with Kylo Ren, where he would find the green lightsaber, pick it up, and then have a vision or something which would result in his eventual redemption. Again...
Now, that would have been nice.
Yeah, this didn't happen.
No, as we well know.
So, the actual... What happened to the lightsaber? After the Jedi Temple was destroyed by Kylo Ren's weird Force storm thing, which was it was Palpatine. It was all Palpatine.
It's always Palpatine.
Yeah, gotta get one of those in every few episodes, you know.
Yeah.
So he actually took it into exile with him. And another theory here, what I thought would have happened would be to show that he had actually given up entirely. He would have dismantled it himself. He would have been like, there's no way I'm using this. Here I am. I'm going to dismantle it.
I thought that was my theory behind what happened, because you do see some kind of thing hanging from inside his hut.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is his lightsaber.
No, it's not. That thing you're referring to, that is a kyber crystal from Darth Vader's lightsaber, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's quite nice. Okay.
And I found that out purely from, I think there's it was merchandise before episode 8 came out of like Darth Vader's kyber crystal on a necklace. And it was like, oh, how's that going to tie into the film? It didn't tie into the film at all.
It's just there for all of 2 seconds.
So he took his lightsaber into exile with him, and there it remained, just in a little cupboard or something. And then after Luke died, the caretakers of the island stored it in the island's repository, and there it remains to gather dust. I assume at some point...
so it's still there?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I like to think at some point Rey is going to return to the island and pick it up, because now that it's a known location of the origins of the Jedi, I almost feel like it's somewhere Rey would return to pretty regularly.
Well, you would have thought, I mean, if it drew Luke there, it would definitely draw Rey there, if not for its knowledge, but for its spiritual effect, I assume. But yeah, no, very cool.
Yeah, so that's what happened to the green lightsaber. It's just in a box somewhere.
That's completely different to how I thought, because obviously I thought the thing that was hanging, I thought, like you were saying, that he dismantled it completely. Yeah. And then just sort of hung it up as some kind of, I don't know.
It would have been cool to perhaps, this is just maybe a fan theory or possible theory I'm coming up with now. It would have been cool if he dismantled his lightsaber and then, as a gift to Rey, gifted her like the kyber crystal or something, so she could make her own. Or alternatively, Rey was able to steal the kyber crystal to make her own lightsaber for episode 9. That would have been cool to see. That's one thing I think of in episode 9. It was a real missed opportunity not to have Rey have her own lightsaber.
Definitely.
Like, she makes one at the end, but it would have been cool for us to see that throughout the entire film, really.
Definitely, because there's a whole thing surrounding being able to build, you know, like episode 6?
Yes, I am aware of episode 6.
Well, that's good. That's a good
Thank
start.
You.
So basically, here Luke and Vader are walking, and then he shows Vader his lightsaber, and Vader goes, "Oh, well, that's impressive.
I see you have constructed a new lightsaber."
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But a whole trivia of lore was created purely from that scene about lightsabers.
Yeah.
And that building a lightsaber was a passage to being a Jedi.
Yeah.
So it did seem kind of weird that she didn't have her lightsaber in episode 9, definitely, based on that. If you're basing it on that, which I think is a really cool thing to base it on, I think the idea of building your lightsaber is sort of like the sort of, it completes you in your training, and then it's sort of your weapon The idea of just pulling one out of some kind of storage facility is a little bit.
It almost
little bit
would
dry.
have, because they really liked to parallel the original trilogy with the new trilogy. It would have been a nice parallel to 4 and 5. Luke uses his father's lightsaber. Episode 6 he uses his own. 7 and 8, Rey is using Luke's lightsaber until it's destroyed in episode 8, and in episode 9 she uses her own lightsaber. That would have been a nice parallel, I would have thought, between the two series.
Yeah, definitely. I would have thought that would have been a really lovely touch.
Yeah.
But no, I think,
Perhaps
and
not,
that's mainly
no.
to do with the fact that the whole trilogy, the whole sequel trilogy, wasn't done by one creative director, one visionary pushing the whole trilogy.
Yeah.
So it did kind of lack a little bit of cohesion, but that's okay. I think we still enjoy it for what it is.
We still do enjoy it for what it is. We don't want to be those people who just shit on the trilogy all the time.
We ain't the naysayers.
No, we're the yay sayers.
Oh, damn straight, Charlie.
Yeah.
So
that's that question. What happened to Luke's green lightsaber? It's in storage. Excellent.
Brilliant. Well, maybe that will come back again. Who knows?
Hopefully.
If they do another trilogy. They did say that would be the last one in the Skywalker trilogy, though.
Yes.
So that's assuming it's not assuming we won't ever see Rey again, but it's assuming that anything to do with Luke and his lightsaber is probably gone now.
Yeah,
We're just going to never see that again. You know, the mention of Luke Skywalker will merely be in passing.
What I would like from the future of Star Wars is I don't really want to see anything from after episode 9, to be honest. I would much rather, like they've set up those comics set long before they say
they call it the High Republic.
Yeah, that's a really good
years and
era,
years ago.
I would say, to base things in.
Definitely going backwards now and looking at the origins of the Jedi and how, seeing a Republic, though we do kind of see it, I suppose, in the prequel trilogies, actually seeing a non-corrupt full Republic working.
Yeah.
In a certain way. It's a very nice concept. And there is a lot of, I don't know if it's canon, I think they completely denounced it now.
Yeah.
But there's the whole sort of Star Wars, The Old Republic.
Yeah.
There's a few games, Knights of the Old Republic, which go in depth into Sith Lords and Jedi in that time.
Yeah.
Which personally I find just absolutely incredible, and there's so much
it's just
so much great content there.
Yeah, crying out to have something based off those
definitely
old Republic
I'd definitely
games,
say if anyone is listening to this and you're a gamer and have never played these games before, you like Star Wars, then Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, very very
myself,
good games.
I've never played them.
Well, I would recommend them to you, Charlie. They are absolutely incredible.
Thank you very much, Spencer.
The story is just brilliant. It's excellent and would make great films, I think. And I think there's a lot of people in the sort of the Star Wars kind of fan community, yes, that's the word I was looking for, who would definitely agree with me. They are incredible games.
Yeah.
And we are crying out for an Old Republic trilogy.
Disney Plus series.
Yeah, a trilogy or series or film or just a spin-off thing. It would just be absolutely incredible. So that's my line anyway. I'll stop going on about it.
That's your promotion for Knights of the Old Republic.
But but they are creating a lot of like books and comics based on what they're calling the High Republic, which I think is a similar era to the Old Republic. But
yeah,
I'm sure we'll find out more when the books are released. Definitely.
Yeah, cool. So do you want to go on to question 2? Do you want to remind us what that question was? I believe you did it. Yeah,
it's pretty much based around Leia's lightsaber and essentially why didn't Luke throw it away? Why did he keep Leia's lightsaber when he was so conflicted with the Jedi and the Jedi values? Obviously, the lightsaber is very associated with the Jedi. There's a great quote which defines a lightsaber. It's a Jedi tool and a Sith weapon, which I think is a really good way of sort of describing
that's very
it.
Cool.
But I'll move on to the question. So, as we know from what Charlie was saying earlier on in the episodes 5 and 6, I think we'll probably be in episode 6 by now.
Yeah, this will be episode 6, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, Leia was trained as a Jedi by Luke. We don't know how long for. I think you maybe said a year or something. I don't know. She was trained as a Jedi, had the lightsaber, as we saw in the flashback in episode 9. You can see her lovely blue lightsaber. And basically, she stopped being a Jedi because of Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And she saw a vision that someone else would need the lightsaber in the future, was the big thing with the lightsaber specifically.
Okay.
Not why Leia stopped training. The reason she gave it to Luke was because she thought someone will need it in the future. I think she saw a vision, and that was the case. So it was given to Luke, and Luke kept it and said, whenever you want to come back and train as a Jedi, this will be there for you. And she said, nope, I'm not coming back. And I like to think they both shared an embrace, and cracked on with their lives.
A good hearty handshake, and then never saw each other ever again.
That's it. That's literally it.
Keep
so
it
that
professional,
Yeah. So that's pretty much the reason why he kept it, was because Leia made a promise to Leia that he'd hold on to it until this visionary, this new power in the Force would turn up and want it. So really, it's an emotional reason for him.
Yeah.
As to why he kept it. He made promises, and he felt he promised something to Leia, and that was separate to his own beliefs and feelings in the Jedi. So, he still loved his sister, or cared for her, if you don't like the use of love, because you're a Jedi-ite. but basically, he held on to it for that reason, kept it away, put it underneath somewhere. I think he wrapped it up and put it away because, firstly, he wanted to keep it safe, but also out of sight, out of mind. He didn't want to be reminded of that, what he's lost and left. So, the real reason he kept it is because of keeping a promise to his sister, I think. But also, when I was researching this question, I actually thought Luke's lightsaber was the one that was dismantled. So I assumed, this is why I came up with these questions, I assumed he had done that to his lightsaber, and it's like, well, why didn't he do something to hers? But it seemed like lightsabers don't really matter to me. They're not really anything much to do with my beliefs and whatever. I just hide them away. Evidently, he felt like he didn't need to destroy anything.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
I can understand why he kept Leia's, because like you say, that's a promise to Leia.
Yeah.
He probably would have felt bad had he dismantled that one. But yeah, I feel like he really should have. If you're planning on going into hiding, Luke, you should have just dismantled your lightsaber, really.
Definitely. If that was his belief, I don't understand why he didn't do that. I have a feeling the reason why he didn't do that is because it keeps Star Wars fans kind of happy. Oh, his lightsaber's there somewhere.
Oh, it's in the background.
Oh, it's in a museum now.
Yeah.
Damn those island nuns. They're charging 5 credits to get in. Yeah, it's pretty obvious, I think, the reasons why he kept it, but I just wanted to make sure.
I
wanted to
see
see whether there was more
of it being a promise to Leia.
He lost his Force, but didn't lose his humanity.
That's good, Dan. That's important to remember about our old pal Luke.
Definitely.
He lost faith, but not his humanity.
Yeah, which is probably part of the reason he was sort of influenced back, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, he's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy, and I think that's important to remember. He's had some rough times, but ultimately, he's a nice chap, really.
Exactly. I think that's what we can draw from that. Anyway, so that's the end of that question.
Yes.
So Charlie, just give us the lowdown on the final question of my little bonus round.
Yeah. This question was, why were the Force ghosts of past masters not available for council before Luke went into self-exile?
Which is an incredible question, and it's one that's been on my mind for ages. Why didn't they appear at any point? Either they did appear, and we don't see that, or they didn't appear, and they just left Luke on his own until suddenly Yoda turns up with his powers of Greek gods, starts blowing things up everywhere. I mean, come on, that would be useful. That's got to be useful somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, get all the Force ghosts together. Get Qui-Gon, get all the ancient Force ghosts, get them to whip out some lightning storms on the First Order. Leaves a lot to be imagined. Anyway, Charlie, do you want to give us what you found? I actually found when I was researching it, there wasn't that much in terms of fat content, but a lot to sort of chew on.
My first thought about this was, if we're thinking about why didn't they appear, I kind of thought to myself, when do Force ghosts appear? Like, is there a set time when they can and cannot appear? Because that would then explain if they did or if they didn't.
Yeah.
The idea behind a Force ghost is that upon the death of someone who is Force sensitive, they can become one with the Force, but they learn to maintain their separate identity from the Force. So when you die, you become one with the Force. Yeah. But if you have this ability, you can maintain your consciousness and maintain some of your physical form within the Force, and that's essentially what a Force ghost is. You can learn this ability, or you can achieve this ability through self-sacrifice. So I almost think that's what happened with Obi-Wan, was even though he knew of this ability, it was his self-sacrifice which allowed him to become a fully formed ghost, really. Same with Darth Vader, and Yoda was just a very powerful Jedi, so he could just do it.
As was Qui-Gon.
Yeah, absolutely. Qui-Gon, like you say then, he was the first of the recent Jedi to achieve this ability of becoming a Force ghost. And Qui-Gon then passed this ability on to Yoda and Obi-Wan. But interestingly enough about Qui-Gon could not achieve physical form. He was only able to use his voice as a presence. And because if you remember in episode 3, Yoda says something, I can't remember the exact quote, but I've received a message from Qui-Gon about life after death, essentially. And the reason why he didn't have Qui-Gon in full form was he could only achieve it through the use of his voice for some reason.
Very bizarre, okay.
I guess he didn't quite sacrifice himself enough to achieve full. No, he was really into it. It wasn't really a sacrifice. It was kind of just
he was doing it for
accidental. Yeah. The thing about Force ghosts, although we see them quite a lot in the films, they don't really appear that often in terms of in the actual canon. Really, they only appear in these kind of more recent ones in times of great need. So when Obi-Wan appeared, firstly it was on Hoth, and it was to get Luke to the Dagobah system. Then again on the Dagobah system after Yoda died, Obi-Wan needed to explain to Luke the information he really needed in order to confront Vader. And then when it was Yoda, Obi-Wan and Anakin, when they were burning Darth Vader's body, that was again a ceremonial moment of the end of the Empire. But an interesting thing I found out in the process of this was Darth Vader's body, although it doesn't happen in the film, actually disappears. So when they burnt Vader's suit, it was actually just the suit and the mechanical parts that they were burning, because Anakin Skywalker had actually disappeared by that point, or at least his torso had disappeared.
Dear,
poor guy,
dude,
poor guy.
But yeah, so he sort of did what Obi-Wan did and sort of fluttered out. In a sense.
Yeah, it just doesn't appear in the actual film. Force ghosts can only appear, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I believe they can only appear to Force-sensitive beings. So Luke can see them, and Leia could see them, but apart from that, we don't see anyone else who is not Force-sensitive being able to see them. So you have to be able to sense the Force to see them. And in terms of why they didn't appear to Luke, it kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier about how he had shut himself off from the Force. It's one of those things that explains why he didn't see them the entire time he was on the island and stuff, because he had shut them out from the Force, and it was only when he reopened himself back into the Force that Yoda was able to appear to him. But it still doesn't really quite explain why they didn't appear before then. So
why didn't they turn up?
Did you find anything else
moment?
about that? Because I struggle to find anything about why they don't appear more regularly, except for the fact that they just don't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of the research was people questioning it, being like, oh, this opens up a lot of doors about Force ghosts and all this stuff. That's all I really found. But from my understanding of it is that it seems to me, it's kind of frustrating because it's kind of counter to what Yoda implies, which is that Qui-Gon reached out to him. Mm-hmm. But it sort of almost implies that they try and summon them almost.
Yeah.
The people who need them summon them, or if they're in need, the Force within them summons them.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was going for, what I could see. But, I mean, really, there's not much in there in terms of substance as to why they didn't turn up in Luke's time of need. When Kylo or Ben Solo destroyed the whole Jedi school and he was there, and you would have thought at that point would be a good point for Yoda to turn up and be like, don't fear, Luke. Okay, it is. Try again, you will.
Much better than me. Much better than my impression, that is. You can actually commit. I just kind of half-assed it.
Nah, I just love Yoda as a character. I think he's great.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
But he definitely, I don't know, that is a gaping hole, to be honest. Force ghosts and the understanding and their impact in the Star Wars universe, because it almost says to me that if that is the case, then that implies that the Force ghosts themselves have actively not turned up.
Yeah.
So in so doing, and this again is another theory, in so doing, they have decided that now is not the right time to intervene, and they have seen far enough along in the future to
Yeah.
know that they'll need to intervene later, and then they're not going to have an impact now.
That is a good point. If they are one with the Force, surely they can see the future, the past. So it's almost like they don't appear because, like you say, they know they don't need to until that specific moment.
Yeah, it can almost solve itself, but at the same time, it feels like it's almost, from my perspective, just frustrating that they haven't got there in time to even kind of Kylo Ren, like Luke confronting Kylo Ren. Wouldn't he want to speak to the Force Ghost to be like, I'm a bit concerned about the grandson of Darth Vader.
So how am I doing, guys? I don't feel like I'm doing great, but just a little bit of advice, if you please.
What do you reckon? Should I strike down one of my young students? Anakin just pops up going, yeah, sure, yeah. Worked out for me.
No, I can say from experience, do whatever you want. It all works out fine.
Yeah, you just end up all fluffy and light. You just end up like a ghost. It's cool.
Oh, yeah. All sparkly glowy.
Sparkly glowy. Yeah, it definitely feels like something he should have talked to the Force Ghost about before wanting to strike down his own student. I mean, It does. It's beggars belief. It is beggars belief. But yeah, so again, that question definitely is incredibly open-ended.
Yeah.
And is a case that is still open and unsolved.
There's no definitive answer, I don't think, in terms of that one.
I think it's mainly down to that was my book fall off again.
Oh dear.
Nice. I think it's mainly down to interpretation. So if you see it as a certain thing, you can play that interpretation that way. But even with interpretation, it leaves a lot of holes.
Yeah, I see it as they didn't appear because they didn't appear.
Well, exactly. So got to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Just like the map, it's there. Deal with it. It's just
there. Yeah. Good reference to the previous episode.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So I believe that's us done with all those questions and about Luke.
Right. Yeah. And thank you to everyone that is sort of following us on Twitter and Facebook. Absolutely. And
thank you for the
listening
following. To us. Thank you for the listens. It really helps. If you enjoy, be sure to give us a like on social media. Leave a review. That's a really good way for us to see that you're actually enjoying what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely let us know how we're doing, because obviously, we're our own critics at the moment, so it'd be great to hear what you guys have in terms, and if you have any knowledge that we haven't managed to mention in any of the episodes that you feel you want to make us aware of, we are more than happy to hear about it. Trust me, the more lore, the better. I think. If
there's anything we missed, if there's anything we perhaps got wrong, hopefully not, do tell us. We're on Reddit and places like that, so
yeah, across the board.
Just find us, tell us what you think, tell us what we did and what we didn't.
But yeah, no, aside from that, thanks for everyone who's been listening. It's really good to, we've had a few people listening, so we're just slowly seeing if people want to listen. Obviously, this is for our own enjoyment as well, but if we can get people along for the ride as well that enjoy our lore, then
yes,
fantastic. That's what I say.
Yes. Hopefully we will be back again soon. We'll update you with future episodes and future releases as they come.
Well,
we will continue to hopefully be doing some recording in this trying time.
Yeah, in these trying times, definitely we'll be doing more recording. As self-isolation goes, we've got to fill the time, really.
Absolutely, yeah. So you might be seeing a lot of us over the coming weeks because, not much else to do here in social distancing land.
Definitely not. But anyway, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of How Uncivilized. Thank you.
Look after yourself, everyone. Thanks for listening to episode 6 of How Uncivilized. With Luke Skywalker out of the way, we will be moving on to the adopted Skywalker, Rey, coming next week.
You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, Reddit, and Apple Podcasts. How Uncivilized was created, produced, and edited by Charlie Feasby and Spencer Lawrence.